Ow. So welcome everyone. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, my name is Jana Saylor and I am the founder and artistic director of the Allegra Chamber Orchestra, which is an all-female orchestra with a social action mandate. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm coming to you today from the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, that is the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Nakota nations, and also the Métis Nation Region 3, currently known as Calgary, Alberta, where it is snowing. So think of me, because after this I will have to go shovel my walk. So I hope it's springtime wherever you are. If you are a first-time attendee at one of our workshops. Just a little bit of background. Allegra's mandate is to champion the works of female and minority artists and composers. And over our 5-year history, we have commissioned between 2 to 4 works per year, and the majority of our self-produced engagements have included at least one Canadian premiere, if not a world premiere. So these community workshops are part of the Composer Incubator Mentorship Program for female and minority composers that kicked off in February and will run until June. So we currently have 6 wonderful mentees paired up with established mentors, and you'll get to see the fruits of their labor in June as part of our festival, which is going to be a 3-day online festival. And we have one of our mentors, Rodney Sharman, is on the call today. So welcome, Rodney. And then we have a handful of our 6 mentees with us today. We have Mary Alice Conrad from Edmonton. We have Palas Athena and Holly Winter. Holly is coming to us from Newfoundland. And Athena is, I believe you're currently in Vancouver, are you? Yes. Okay, great. Getting the facts right is always good. So today I'm delighted to be able to bring you a really valuable workshop with the incomparable Walter Quan, who is a wonderful colleague to all of us here on the West Coast, in addition to being an accomplished clarinetist and a wonderful baker, which I can attest to personally. He's known as the go-to guy for all things grant related in BC, and he's joining us from the BC Arts Council. So thank you so much for being with us today, Walter. And without further ado, let's welcome him, and I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you. I haven't done anything yet, so it's good. Appreciate very much being able to come and chat with folks. I work at the BC Arts Council. I'd like to acknowledge that we do our work all over this land, which is now colonially known as British Columbia, which the vast majority of which is untreated and unceded territory of Indigenous folks. We are grateful to those who've kept the land, the space, the territories, the beautiful territories that we're all on, that we're able to live, work, and play here. The BC Arts Council is located on Lekwungen territory, which means the place of the smoked fish, now more commonly known as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. I've been with the Arts Council 29.5 years. Well, 29 years, I guess, not the half yet, coming up. And I've been very blessed to work with individuals, mostly in writing, visual arts, and media arts. A few years ago, I took over the music desk, so I deal with organizations and individuals. My Grants 101 talk is, I hope, applicable to many situations, not just the BC Arts Council. I hope that I can give you any information you need about the BC Arts Council, but for instance, for Alberta and Newfoundland, there are similar agencies, and hopefully the methodology, hopefully the process would be similar, or find out what's different about that and work accordingly. When I took Grants 101 many years ago, our instructor was Joy Leach. Joy was the development director at Simon Fraser University and arguably built Simon Fraser downtown, not the Woodward site, but the Simon Fraser downtown. And she had a a way of looking at resourcing projects that went like this. Joy would say, describe what you want to do. Describe your vision, your project, your idea. Because there are few situations where someone will give you money just because you're a great person. So you need something specific. And all of your filmmaking friends, all of your filmmakers have a pitch in their back pocket that they're ready, that if they meet Jimmy Pattison in an elevator, they've got 6 floors to tell him why he should give them money, or how many ever floors it might be. And they all have a pitch ready. So it is a useful thing to have in mind about what your vision, your project, your idea is. And then Joy would say, take a step back and say, oh, can I share screen, Jana?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. I'll just make that possible. One moment.
Sounds good. So Joy would say, you get this idea and get it down really clearly so that it's unambiguous, so that people understand what that is very easily. And then she would say, take a step back and say, who cares and who ought to care? I'm not overly technically facile here, but who cares and who ought to care? And she would say that if the folks who don't know they ought to care about your vision, your project, your idea, don't know, then you have to find a way to tell them. And when you tell them, they may not be the ones who immediately open up their wallets and hand you money, but they may be the ones who form a critical mass around your idea, your project, your vision. And that's how she looked at community building and how she got things done. So the BC Arts Council cares about you because you are going to be professional artists of the province of BC. The Canada Council cares about you because you're Canadian artists, professional Canadian artists. There may be foundations or organizations that care about you because of demographics, your gender, your ethnicity, your age. Whether or not you have a Mason or a Rotarian in the family, the subject matter of what you're looking into, the stories that you're telling, those are all reasons why there might be something for someone specific to care about. Then you have to find a way to show them and tell them, and also find a way for them to help you and give you money or be part of that idea or part of that vision. And that was Joy's approach to resourcing projects. She later became mayor of Nanaimo and arguably helped build the Port Theatre that way in Nanaimo. I think there were a number of environmental projects. And I do believe that Joy, who's no longer with us anymore, I do believe she is on a little cloud laughing because every one of us has been hit up by crowdfunding. So crowdfunding says, I have an idea, I have a project, I have a vision. Please go to the website, hit play, watch the little video as to why you should care about my project or my vision or my idea. And if you agree, if you support that, hit donate. And that was, the original mode for crowdfunding, I think, was based on Joy's who cares and who ought to care. Crowdfunding worked early days really successfully because it was really novel. It's like, oh, what a cool thing. Oh, yeah, sure, I can support them. Now that we've all been hit every week, we're hit with a crowdfunding campaign. It's much harder and people really have to work at it. But what they do is they say, oh, great, I got money from Rodney. Now, who are Rodney's friends who also might care about this idea? How do I get to them? Maybe he would be willing to forward on our crowdfunding idea to those people who also care. And it's those ones who are constantly working that work. Here's another reason why you might care about my idea. Here's an update. Those are how those projects are successful. So, as I say, the BC Arts Council cares about you because you're professional artists. Find out if there are programs of a particular agency or organization that you're looking at that exist. So most of us have websites. Some of them are accessible. Most of them have some information at least, and you'll look to see what a program is supposed to do. So at this moment, the BC Arts Council, for instance, has a program next week that's closing, a couple programs, well, actually a bunch of programs closing next week. One for professional musicians, professional music projects, one for scholarships for students at post-secondary level. I think the other relevant one would say I have a program for professional arts training projects. So you look at the guidelines and see what makes you eligible. What do we regard as eligible? So scholarship students are simply going back to school, full-time winter studies to a degree or diploma program. Professional music projects is for individuals, ensembles, and registered or registered nonprofit societies doing specific projects. Look to see what we can't do, for instance. So we don't do sound recording, we don't do album production in that program. And so compare those of what we can do with what your idea is, what's your vision. None of the agencies want you to change what you want to do. None of us want you to, we don't want to affect what you're making or doing or creating. But you may find a different way to talk about it depending on why the agency or who you're approaching cares about and what they care about and what aspect they may care about your project. So see if that fits. Look at the timelines, look at the eligibilities, make sure that you're eligible for the project, for that particular program and that opportunity. Find out what the deadlines are and give yourself some time. Time to work up whatever's required in the application. If you think something may fit, but you're not absolutely sure, that's a great time to get in touch with a program officer to say, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is why I think it might fit, but this is why I'm not so sure. Let's have a conversation. If we don't think you've read the guidelines, we're going to send you back to the guidelines, say, go read the guidelines, and then get back to us and see. That's the, and as we get closer to the deadline, the calls start bumping up. So next week will be very busy for me because the deadline's on Friday. Where do I want to go with there? I'm going to show you our internal system if I can find it. Ooh, hang on. I'm going to do that one. Sorry, meant to put this up sooner. Ah, good. So this was not part. Now, is that showing as our inside our portal? Awesome. Thank you. So this is once you register. When you register in our system, the written deadline says that our admin folks need 4 days to set you up. So when the deadline's next Friday, when you're sending a note at Friday at noon saying, oh my God, I never registered, that could be a problem. I mean, they do turn them around much faster than that, particularly when there's a deadline happening. But there's also scholarships is closing next Friday. There should be 300 applications. Music projects is closing next Friday, as well as dance and theater. Probably that's another. We'll probably have by 11:59 on Friday night easily 1,000 or 1,200 applications being submitted. If you wait till 11:55 on Friday night, the 30th of April, the chances of our server crashing are reasonably high. Do not wait until then, because the number of emails that we get timestamped at 12:01 going, it didn't work and I won't take it anymore. There's not a lot we can do. And particularly when that's on a Friday, we won't see those until Monday. And anyway. Here's what you see on site once you have registered. And it will say, look, here are the funding opportunities open. These are just showing programs that are open. It doesn't mean you're eligible for that program necessarily. It does say that this is what's going on. So I'm going to click here and you'll see professional dance, professional music, professional theater, and scholarship. I have them all. Professional arts training. Okay, this is an individual person. There's a different screen that comes up if you're an organization. Which would probably not show scholarship, but it would show the other 3 programs. So when you say apply now, there will be another screen that opens up. You assure us that you're eligible by clicking yes, then you'll get to an application. And I want this one. Our test person's very, very busy. They apply to everything. So it will show the kinds of things that are required. So I'm going to walk you through what's required for an individual applying in our professional music program. In principle, this is what you'll get. It will vary from program to program. This shows who you are, just to make sure. We'll ask you some details. What's your practice? We ask for an artistic statement of 200 words for individuals. We ask for a bit of your history about what you've done in BC, 400 words. There is a blurt here that says application summary, which summarizes all of these tabs and gives the headers. Now, unfortunately, I don't think it gives the word counts. So you do want to get into the tabs on the application. We ask what your project information is. So we want to know how much you'd like, when it's starting, when it's finishing, which category you're applying to. So we have in the program a component that's creation and development, making the work, and then production and realization, making it happen, presenting it, or both. And as the sheet says, it will, once you click off one of these, some of the boxes may change in the actual application. 25-word description. This is standard practice. 25 words. What would you read in the TV guide if you were reading in TV listings? What is the project that you'd want to do? And so you always need to work up that description. Summary of the project, including the title, if applicable and or determined yet. Between this and describe the rationale, artistic vision, and objectives, Francois Hull, clarinet player, offers this to his professional practice students. And I think as creative people, I don't like to give out cookbook necessarily, but when you're doing a project description, Francois offers that your 2 chunks of writing after the 25-word description should include a short paragraph that describes 4 of the W5.5s. So the who, the what, the when, and the where. 4 descriptions of what the project is. And then he suggests a longer piece. So this says 500 and 500. I think he says 1 paragraph and then a longer one. And in that second paragraph, you should talk about your expectations, your plans for implementation. I like to say, what will you use the money for? Some of our programs, we suggest you consider why you, why now, why this project, whether you're an organization or an individual, but why you, why now, why this project. I think all of those can be, in many ways, are other ways of saying rationale, artistic vision, and objectives underlying the project. So consider those. You've got kind of between the 2 boxes, 1,000 words, which is actually 4 pages double spaced in the old page count version. So that's a fair amount of writing if you like. Doesn't have to be that long. Consider how the materials will be used and who's looking at it. I will come to the jury process in a bit, but when you're writing, consider who you're writing for. Maybe I should talk about juries. So our programs are juried by other artists. They're the ones who make the decisions about who get the grants. They get access to all of this material in the same way that you do as you're completing it. They have access to the whole lot of applications that are going to be eligible and complete. That's what we, the bureaucrats, do. We make sure that you're eligible and complete. And they get access to this just as you have typed in the information. For a project program like music, it's solely musicians at the table. Now, that does mean
the toilet wasn't gross.
someone should
I flushed it like
Hello, someone should mute, please. um, I'm taking that off for a second just so I can talk at you. Consider that in a music jury, the assessors are all musicians. They may come from a wide variety of practice. They probably come from a wide variety of practice because of the breadth of applications that we get in the competitions. So you can make some assumptions about speaking music to other musicians. We do have other programs that are multidisciplinary. So when it's a multi typically it's performing arts, so it's theater, dance, and music, or studio practice, which is visual arts, media arts, and writing. And if it's a multidisciplinary jury, you gotta know that when your music-based application is going to the folks, there's at least two of them, the theater person and the dance person, who may not speak music. They may not understand the process. They may not understand music and how we do what we do. So it has to be clear to them. If it's clear to them, it will be clear to your music person, but it needs to be clear to a wide variety of folks. And generally speaking, you can find out whether the jury is going to be multidisciplinary or whether it's only going to be music folks or whether I think Alberta for a bit used to have lay people on their juries, like people from boards and business folks, because there was an emphasis. This is a long time back. I've been running the business too long, but at one point AFA had lay people on their juries that were not of the arts necessarily. So that's yet a different dimension to that jury that you want to keep in mind when you're writing. I'm going to go back to this guy. We have another couple of boxes. This is specifically around if you're working cross-culturally. We want to know that you have done appropriate protocol, particularly with Indigenous communities, but also you've done your homework. Have you consulted with and worked with the communities that you're engaged with? There's a phrase out there called "not about us without us." Have strategic direction. So the BC Arts Council has a strategic plan, and it's important that some of our programs are reflecting some of those aims, which include Indigenous arts and culture, equity, diversity and access, and community arts and regional arts. So if that is something that applies to your project, great, write it in, make sure that it does include engagement and impact. So there's a question around engagement and impact. Who are your communities? Who are you reaching? Accessibility questions. You'll find many of the agents understanding you have done this kind of work before. Organizations especially need to talk about that you have process for safe and respectful workplaces. We're currently in COVID, so we have COVID questions. And if you have previously gotten assistance. There's a budget form, which is unfortunately a bit kludgy, but what we got. Oh, I don't know. I can see the budget. I don't know what's that. Did that open for y'all? Okay. I have to take that. Share again. Getting better at this. There's a budget form. So what sometimes is really important and useful is to show the notes for different items in your budget. How did you come to those figures? This is, in some ways, it starts the evaluate. It's part of the evaluation as folks read your budget and say, does that amount make sense? How did that come to be? So if you have a weird or big number in any one of the categories and it's not explained, the panelists will say, what's going on? How come they're spending so much on whatever that is? The budget form that we have applies to many, many different situations. So much of it won't apply. You're not going to have online editions and e-commerce costs, for instance, for a music project. I wish I could take it out, but it's a standardized form. So don't worry if you only fill in 3 lines, the project at hand. So I was saying to somebody earlier, if your composer is being commissioned by a small chamber group, a trio, having them send very best full orchestra, full on orchestra bang music may not be the best support material for a commission for a delicate trio. So match it up. Show, give samples that work. So we have a spot to upload media files. When you upload a media file, it goes into the system and our panelists can just click on them and watch them and hear them. It's okay to send links to other places, Vimeo or whatever that may be. If you send a password protected site to us, send the password. I have a pretty good rate about guessing, but send the password. I think actually our guidelines even now say that if you are going to put a password, we recommend BCAC_2021 as the password. So we ask for the CV of the person applying. We ask for bios if it's a collective. If you haven't got money from us before, we do ask for a couple of letters of reference, assessment, any other documentation that helps to show your case. There's a declaration box, which basically says you have to click and say, I understand and agree to the that you've told your truth, that you're eligible, and that how we collect personal information, because we're covered. Okay, let's get out of that. That's the process of an application. As I say, when we have them all in a week and a half, I'll look at the list of everybody that's applied. I will go through them and make sure that you're eligible. I'll make sure that you have done a complete application. I'll look at all of the applications and try to figure out what kind of a panel that we need to have the expertise to collectively look at everything that's come in that competition. And I will start getting on the phone and I'll call and beg people to be on the jury. There is an honorarium for that, but it's a lot of time. And depending on how many applications we have, it could be a lot more time. Last year, we ended up with 41 individual applications and 49 for organizations and ensembles. I think that was it. So it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of evaluating. Once people say yes and we're ready, we release the applications to them. They go through, they look at what you have just put in. They listen to samples, they think about it, they look at the guidelines and criteria, and they give rankings for those applications. Before we meet together, and now we're doing these all on MS Teams. At one point, we did get to meet in person. I hope that happens again at some point, but until then, we're meeting on MS Teams. By the time the meeting happens, they will have submitted their rankings, and we will make up a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet says, here are all the applications. Here are the ones you've given top rankings to. Here are the ones you've been given bottom rankings to. And because time is limited, unfortunately, here's your list. And it doesn't finish there. We'll have great conversations, but there's the list. And there is a group here at the bottom where you didn't rank high enough. No amount of conversation about those ones are going to move them up into the money. So we have a reluctant conversation at that point and say, okay, folks, we're not going to have enough time. We're not going to speak of these applications down. And the panelists are welcome to say, no, but I really want to talk about that one. I want to have that conversation, and we'll entertain those. We'll absolutely do that. But really, if someone has ranked at the very bottom of the list, for instance, no amount of conversation is going to move them up into the money with the competition and with all these other wonderful applications that are here. And then we open up to conversation. So we discuss each application, and the conversations generally go: good project, good support material, high ranking. Bad project, bad support material, not very good ranking. Where am I? Bad project, good support material, maybe something's happening, not sure. And good project, bad support material, probably not a good ranking. We'll rejig because people have an opportunity to change their rankings. They'll listen to each other. You'll say, I don't know much about this area of practice, so I'm going to defer to the person who does. And oh yeah, I agree. I understand what you're saying. So I may move my marks around. So we return the sheet to the panel at the end of those conversations, and we have talked about those ones below. And they say, great, we want to fund this many. And usually we have to say, yeah, and unfortunately, we can only fund this many. And we don't have any conversations about these ones at the top, ones where they have said, this is fantastic, give them anything they want. But the ones that are around the middle, around that break point, are the ones that they have great long conversations about, and blood on the floor, and great debates, because they'll say, this one right below here is just as good or better than this one. I think this one should be down. So we have those conversations. We work through the applications a lot. We always do ask for highly recommended, so you could be just under the line. And we have had funds lately. Our funding has been, I'd have to say, reasonably generous. And we've been able to go down the list once the panel has left, and once we've done the first round, we have been able to go back and fund a few more. We release the results all at the same time. It does take us 16 weeks to get results out. So results for April 30th will be out in September. Once you're done with the emotion of that result, whatever that might be, it's perfectly okay to call up and have a conversation and say, is it something I had control over, or is it something I didn't have control over? What can I do next time to make it better? And if you're just below the line, there may not be anything you had control over. You need to be that much more, engender that much more excitement with your panel, or something. But if you're below and we had a conversation, there may be, no, it didn't kind of work. The support material just didn't add up, things like that. So that's our process. That's how we do grants. Any questions so far?
Feel free to either submit your questions in the chat and I can read them out, or raise your hand and unmute and go ahead.
I know that for Edmonton and Newfoundland, both there's Alberta Foundation for the Arts and the Newfoundland Labrador, are they an arts council? I think they're an arts council. I have pals in both places, and we all run similarly. Sophie.
Yes, hi, Walter.
Hi.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful. I have a few questions, so if you want to cut me, it's fine. I'll email you later. My first question is, you ask for contribution from other sources for our project. What if at this time, because the grants are due next week, we don't have a confirmation nor an amount? We've been trying to get the money from private or other organizations, and we don't know the money, we don't know how much, and we don't know if it's going to happen. How do we put that in writing for you to know that we are currently looking for funds?
Sure. In the budget form, it says confirmed or projected. So you can put down what you would project from whatever sources that may be.
Okay.
One of the things that people run into, and I've seen it more in film applications, excuse me, is that if you're putting down another source of funding, it does need to be something that is logical, makes sense, that that would be a real possibility as opposed to completely fantastic. So the filmmaker will say, well, but this person at their level of practice could never get that amount from even the Canada Council. So it can bring your project into question around the feasibility if you put down a source that doesn't make any sense. But if you have reasonable chance, if if you have track record and you've done it before, or if you have a sense about what that might look like, projected is fine.
And does the number that we ask from the BC Art Council will change, or we should go for in case we don't have that money, and then you're the lucky one if we do, because we owe you money and we give it back, or we should be, like if you ask for 3,000, but in the end it costs you 5,000 because the 2,000 you were hoping for doesn't happen and your project is not happening. So how do it's how do we put the full amount for your grant application?
So our program has certain limits. Typically, organizations or ensembles can only ask for up to 50% of a production grant.
Okay.
So you do have to show how you're hoping to find the other 50%. If that's not happening, we may have conversations around later on. Usually by the time that happens, we're into a different fiscal year. We don't want the money back. We will work with you to try to make it happen. Because if you give us money back after a fiscal year, it goes to Mr. Horgan. It goes back to the government because we don't have any way to re-spend that. So we want to work with the artist to make sure something like that happens.
Okay, and one question is for the support material for an organization. If you have a project, like my organization has few groups, and the project I'm applying for is for one group in particular, but I have other groups who are doing the same. So would you be more inclined to see what the organization is doing with other groups, or just that particular group that I'm hoping to have a grant for?
I think that focused part of the grant is who you're asking for, and consider yourself, put yourself in the juror's shoes. If you have a wide ranging organization, but you give them support material from something that doesn't have anything to do with the project, they're going to kind of go, hey. So
okay, yeah. And the last thing is you for the resume for the creative team, is it just the musicians involved, or it's like, let's say, like the sound and video recording team as well, or who could change depending on their availability, but could it be there, should I put their resume, or is just us as the musicians?
I think really the folks that are, what people want to know about is who are the artists involved, who's artistically in charge,
Okay.
what's the vision going on there. So if you're hiring other technical people, less important as to who they are, unless they have a fantastic track record and are well known in the music area that says, I'm going to have so and so do my videos. That's fine too.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You bet. Aline had a question about recent support material.
Yeah.
So it should be, doesn't have to be that recent necessarily. I think it's more important that it ties more to the project that's being proposed. But again, for instance, in our scholarship program, it says your support material should have been done within the last year. So look at the guidelines carefully. But if for these kinds of programs, people have gone back to in visual arts in particular. People say, I've got this body of work that I'm working on, and it really does refer to something I did a while ago. So here's the samples from a while ago. Perfectly okay.
Great. And we have another question in the chat from Aaron Marks. How attractive is creating a project with a long-term focus versus a single event or two? Is longevity favored?
I think for long-term projects, the strategy is to work out different phases so that you can ask for money for the different phases each time. And you want to be able to, if it's gonna be a long term, you're gonna need money over a period of time. So if you can work out what the chunk is now, that is the aspect. When our funding was much tighter, I think that there was a real focus on what are we going to get now? What's going to happen? What's the Arts Council paying? What's this jury paying for? What are they going to get? our funding is more generous now. I mean, I'm still going to get a whole whack of applications, folks. This is going to be kind of kooky. Uh, I'll come back to that in a second. So I think there's room now for multiple kinds of projects and maybe different phases of projects and what that might look like. I didn't answer the question directly, but there you go. And what's Rodney suggesting? If you get to actually get, yeah, but if you get more money than you had budgeted for a project, I'm perfectly happy to have a conversation that says, what will the extra money make better? How can you use that? It's typically not like you don't have. It's typically like you have. You would hardly have a situation where you would have too much money for a project. So let's chat. If you do that, that would be good. That would be great. We would celebrate with you. Any other comments?
Just to clarify on the longevity thing,
Please.
or just to burst in, but if I were to propose something that was a one-off situational kind of creative event, like a concert, that kind of thing, it would be perhaps for some sort of benefit for the community, but a specific focus, and just get some money so the musicians can be paid, and that's a one-off. And you were to see that versus I'm starting an organization, this is its first concert. Is there one of those types of situations that would make the jury more inclined to take it seriously or think of it as worthy of the grant?
I think that that question would depend largely on what else was coming in. I think starting something or starting up something, that would be fine. And typically because applicants have to have some kind of a track record, startup's actually a little awkward. But if you are looking at a longer term vision and this one activity is part of that longer term vision, that's great. And the community is really happy to consider those things. One of the things I would say is that we did have a program this last spring called Pivot for Individuals, which was a bit of COVID relief money from the province. And we did get onto a list of our colleagues and our friends at Creative BC, who often deal with a different kind of music than I think most of the folks that are here. And many of them not applicable to what we do, but they applied anyway. And they now have access to our system, and when they open up the screen, it'll say professional music projects open. And they're all going to go, well, I'm a professional musician, I'm going to apply. So some of those projects, when I am currently getting applications that say I'm making my second album, we don't do sound recording in this program. Full stop. So those ones will get disqualified quite quickly, but there's going to be also some that do get through, and it's going to be a wider variety even of applications than typically we've had in this program before, which on one hand is exciting and on one hand is kind of potentially crazy making, and it's going to be interesting to see what we get. But it is a wide swath of applications. And you need to be more exciting to the panel than, say, 80% of the others if we only fund 1 in 5 applications. So it's a tough go. Any other questions? Now we're just going to riff.
Sure, I have a quick question.
Please.
You've mentioned a couple times that successful applications are exciting to a jury. Can you expand on that and explain what makes an application exciting in your view?
Sure. I think particularly for individuals, so much of my experience with the Arts Council has been with programs for individuals. And it's nothing that I've been able to ever write down, but I think that your fellow artists are interested in your activities where they're contributing sort of three areas. One, where it's helping your artistic growth as a practitioner, where this is helping you to develop what you do. Number two, projects that are helping to develop the art form. So, which is why arts councils by their nature do more experimental perhaps than more conventional. You know, how are we expanding the form? What do we understand about art? I always used to say for filmmakers, if you're doing a straight up talking heads documentary, you should go to the National Film Board because that's what the kind of straight up talking heads. But if you're doing something that is interrogating documentary at the same time as doing documentary, that's much more an arts council kind of project. And then the other area that they're interested in is how are you adding to that great meta library out there? So is this adding to the body of work? Is this adding to, have we heard it before? If this is this derivative? Have we already heard this has already been done? If it has been done, why this person? Why this artist? Why this project? Why now? And again, I'll go back. Film examples are easy, and I have lots of film applications over the time when a panel would say, I can see this film, and how well to have written a description where they say, I can see this film. I mean, that's fantastic. And then they'd say, and I think it's a film that Adam Egoyan should make. I don't understand why this person wants to make it. It's like, oh, what an opportunity missed to say why you and why now and why this project. So, and I don't know whether you can do artistic development, development of the form, and saying something new, all in one project. But generally, I can go through lists afterwards for individuals, anyways, and point to them and say, yeah, these ones were the ones where they thought this was a fantastic move. This was a fantastic thing for somebody to do. Here's things that are maybe tweaking the art form and something brand new. And here's stories we've never heard. So those can be things, and I think it applies to organizations applications as well, potentially. So those can be things that people are interested in that make them exciting. You know, what doesn't excite a panel is things that are written unclearly. Making statements that are either debatable or untrue. So someone will say, this is the very best that's ever been happened. And people say, no, it's not. Comparing visual artists comparing themselves to Duchamp sometimes is a little odd. So because they work conceptually, and that, you know, he wrote the book on conceptual art practice, but so careful of your reference sometimes. Sometimes that can trip you up. So.
Sophie, do you have your hand up again, or was your question answered? Just double checking.
Okay.
I was just going to ask if I don't want to take up anyone else's question time, but I just wanted to say or ask, do you have any, pointers for especially ensembles looking to, pivot their offerings during COVID and how we would do that and how we would frame that, and is there, preference given to those projects that rely solely on being able to be realized live, or that can be adapted to COVID offerings?
Absolutely. I mean, any applications right now are COVID impacted, and we have phrases in our guidelines that talk about COVID, which I have, sort of conveniently tried to ignore because I do hope that we get back to a new normal at some point. That said, because there's prohibitions on meeting in large groups, an application for a project meeting in a large group in, I don't know, August, probably would be thrown out directly without a plan B. But if someone's proposing an application, an activity in, can we safely try spring 2022, maybe, for instance, with a backup plan. Ideally, we're not in wave 4, and we'll be able to go ahead with this. But if we are, then this is what we would do. And I think online and streaming is the default right now, anyhow. But you need to say that directly. So if there's a COVID plan B, that's fine. But as I say, in foreseeable future, if something contravenes COVID protocols at this point, we would automatically say no. I would say used to be that we would potentially get back to folks and say, hey, you don't have your COVID plan B. But we get so many applications now, and we have little time, that if we don't see what we need to see, we will toss the application aside because there's too many others, and we unfortunately don't have the time to follow up. So make sure that it makes some sense. People are going to get caught out on that. I realize the prohibition on sound recording is quite subtle in the guidelines, but I'm going to rely on it because I'm going to get a lot of those.
Great.
So just understanding that, just because I was reading and listening, of course we're doing live streams because it's not considered a recording. It's not the same as saying we're making an album. So it's a live stream. It's a live stream. Now,
Correct.
Are live streams ever automatically recorded at the same time for just for your own files? Is that legal, or there would have to be no recording made of the live stream at all?
I can't answer the question on legality, but no. I mean,
in terms of receiving, fair for you guys.
when we say no sound recording, I'm meaning no album production.
Okay, gotcha.
And I think live streaming is as a fallback right now is. I probably should have been more explicit with that's perfectly fine. That's how people are disseminating work. But making an album, go to Creative BC. That's really where Creative BC and Factor, possibly Canada Council.
Great. I think we have time for one more question before we wrap up. Thank you for all the great questions.
Yeah. I want to make sure that if any of the mentees have any questions, we should hear from them.
Yes, absolutely. We heard from Mary Alice. We have both Holly and Athena are on the line, so feel free to jump in, either of you, if you have any queries.
So I would say if you're going to get in contact, please do. Happy to have email or phone calls or whatever that might be. Not Facebook, thank you very much. If you're emailing me, what I have found reasonably successful is if you email me your questions, I can either respond in email, or if I'm tired, I may phone you. So put your phone number in your emails, please, folks. I'm quite amazed at the number of people who aren't using phones, or at least apparently, and just relying on email. So, phone me, you can certainly phone me if you like, but if you send me your questions and I phone you back, then I can also deal with the follow-ups, because otherwise in email we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's just annoying. So happy to answer those questions. It will be cuckoo by the end of next week because the deadline's on the 30th of April. But if you're emailing, if you email, try not to email on a Friday afternoon late, because it will disappear off the bottom of my screen and I may not see it until Wednesday, or whenever that might look like. So do get in touch as you need. Happy to chat.
Great. And could you just remind us of the deadlines that are coming up? You mentioned 4 programs and the date on that.
Yeah, so professional music projects is April 30th, next Friday. Professional arts training, if you have an organization does professional arts training, that's also Friday. Our scholarship program for students at post-secondary also is April 30th, next Friday. If someone's more emergent, if your composers are more emergent, there's a program called Early Career Development, which can assist with mentorships, residencies, or internships. And that is June 15-ish. I don't know whether it's published as to exactly when that deadline is. Alice Athena had a good question. How long should one spend on an application? I like to point out that if you're asking for $5,000, what's reasonable to consider for the amount of time that you would put on how would you otherwise make $5,000? Obviously, if it was a wage job at $20 an hour, that's 250 hours. Is that right? Yeah. So wouldn't be that much, but consider the magnitude of the request and what you're asking for, and work accordingly. But do give yourself some time. I think if you don't have a project in mind right now, putting in an application next Friday might be a bit of a stretch. It's been done, Lord knows, and there will be people calling on Wednesday saying, I think I have an idea, I want to apply, and I know I will get those calls on Wednesday and Thursday. Please don't be one of them, but you could. We all work in different ways, and inspiration hits, and people will be working on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday before they hit submit on our system.
Great. Thank you so much, Walter. That was so great to have you, and such great info for all of us to take away, and as we type away and send in our applications before Friday at 11:59. So much appreciation. And how can folks best get in touch with you if they don't already know how?
It's Walter.Quan. My name spelled there on the screen. Oh, good. At dov.bc.ca. It's fine. The phone number is long and icky, so it's on the website if you need be. bcartscouncil.ca is our website, because you'll want to go there because you'll want to register anyway. So go to our website and take a look at the guidelines and see what you make of it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And check out some of the thank yous in the chat to you. Really appreciative of your time and expertise. That's 29 years in the making. So thanks for sharing that with us today. We really appreciate it.
Terrific. Thanks for having me.
And just a reminder that next Friday we have our percussion workshop, mainly focused on the composers and composing for percussion. So just make sure to register for that if you haven't already, if you're interested in attending. And I should also mention that this program and the Composer Incubator Program and these workshops are made possible by the BC Arts Council and Vancouver Cultural Services. So thank you so much to Walter and his team for making this happen. So, and thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, folks.
All right. Bye for now, and we'll see you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. So awesome. Thanks so much, Walter.
Bet.
That was great.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That was terrific. So, yeah, enjoy. And yeah, any questions, give me a ring. Go from there.
Yes, we'll do.
Okay.
We'll do.
You take care.
Thanks a lot.
Bye
Take care, everyone.